One last time. Relax, have a drink with me. One last time. Musical references aside, I just couldn't resist that one. Um, I've been saying for a while that I wanted to do a final Belit wrap up video talking about Age of Conan Belit and just the things about that series that frustrated me. Part of why I want to go through it is my issue 5 review. I noticed a lot of people didn't realize that one existed, despite the fact I did promote it. I'm not sure what happened there. And the other thing, I went all out for the drama and the ranting and the yelling, and I wanted to come back more calmly and address it in a slightly more adult manner rather than drama queen. And just to kind of cover a last few things about the story that frustrated me and that didn't quite do it for me, I guess you could say. And it still really bothers me, and when I was doing the Valyria issue 2 review, I kept coming back to things about Belit that I still wanted to say, and so I decided, let's do a wrap-up. Let me just do one last time, one last thought, basically. And when I did, the first video I did on this channel was my Why Frozen Sucks video. And I'd had 4 years, four or 5 years really, or almost, yeah, like 5 years to really build up my frustration with that, 4 years, to really build up my frustration with that movie and to pick it apart and see everything that was wrong. But I've noticed that since I did that video and since I just got everything out and I put it on YouTube and people got to hear what I had to say, I've been a lot more calm on the subject of Frozen. I can actually listen to Let It Go without getting furious, without becoming furious. So, hence why I'm here doing a final video, and I have warm apple juice because it is cold outside. Fall has arrived. And yesterday, I actually read over a couple reviews of the Belit trade paperback, because they showed up on Reddit, and it just kind of drove home that I do have more things I want to say, and that just to kind of wrap it all up. And one thing I wanted to cover was a kind of how I would have done it and how I would have written the story. Not in too much detail, but just something more. You know, an alternative take. So one thing that the reviews I read talked about were that, I have my notes over here, so that's why I keep checking those. The reviews I read pointed out that it really feels like a YA novel, which to anyone who's keeping up with Marvel Comics nowadays isn't really surprised, because that's what a lot of it has become, because they keep hiring young adult writers. And young adult, I think I was reading young adult up until I was 24, 25, and even then it had already started to bug me how, you know, the characters just kept making the same stupid teenager mistakes, and I don't like teenagers. I don't like modern teenagers. I feel they are spoiled and entitled, and they have no idea how the world works because they've been protected from consequences. And it's not just them. I mean, that's the whole thing about millennials and Gen Z, is that they have been protected from consequences. They don't understand cause and effect and how one thing can lead to another, and how there are punishments when you do something wrong. And I just saw too much of that. in young adults. And, you know, I talked about, through the Belit series in my reviews, I talked about delayed adolescence and how, and it's still a problem in the flashbacks in the Valyria series, because she's like 12, 13, 14 years old, and I'm going, you should not be running around. You should be having classes. You should be having to take care of your brother's house if you're living in his mansion, it looks like. I don't know. So there's this delayed adolescence, and it is a problem that I see in young adult books. And I think the last time I really picked up a young adult book from the library, I got like 2 pages in, because it was yet another carbon copy action girl story. I didn't even have to get more than a couple pages in. I'm like, I don't want to read this again. I don't want to read another girl learning to fight and leading a revolution. I don't have any interest in those stories, and that is what pretty much all young adult stories have become. And so I don't like seeing it in comic books, where I expect something a bit more than that. I expect a little more maturity, I suppose. And one of the reviews said that the series was perfect for young teen girls because of the YA feel. And that really bothered me, because I don't want a Conan young adult novel for the same reason I don't want an MCU Conan movie. These stories, this world of Hyboria that Robert E. Howard created, should not be cheapened to either a young adult level or to the lighthearted quips and jokes that the MCU is known for, and which have been becoming even more prevalent and a bit more obnoxious. Let's go with obnoxious. And I don't like comedy. I'm not a lighthearted person who enjoys that. I do enjoy sarcasm and banter, although in the Downton Abbey movie I was told that sarcasm is the lowest form of humor. I'm sorry, Violet. I just remembered that line. But I've never been the type of person who enjoyed comedy. I don't like sitcoms. I don't like any of these things, just because I think it's kind of cheap. And I've just never enjoyed it, personally. And that's why, you know, I enjoy Guardians of the Galaxy for the story, not for the humor. And even walking out of the first Guardians of the Galaxy, I'm like, it's a great movie, I just hate all the dumb jokes. And this teenage boy level of humor. And I understand, because when it comes to movie-going audience, the biggest demographic is going to be 12 to 24-year-old boys. So movies do have to cater to them, and that's why we get so many action movies. That's why we get so many male-dominated stories, because that's what sells. And I'm okay with that, and I think they should be left that way. I mean, make movies for girls. I would love to see some that aren't chick flicks, because I don't usually like chick flicks either. Legally Blonde and Clueless are kind of my guilty pleasure movies. So I don't want to see Hyboria cheapened to either of these levels, either to the MCU or the YA standard, and that is exactly what Belit did. It tried to make a young adult novel out of Belit. And it probably could be done by a decent writer, but Tinny Howard was not the right writer to do it. And again, you get the fact that she tried to cover 5 years in 5 issues. And yes, there's multiple time skips, but it still let a lot of things fall through the crack. And getting back to the whole point of the young adult feel, the art, which personally I thought it was pretty bad. The pages were undynamic. Some of the faces were just weird, and the backgrounds were really odd angles. That's what an editor is for. They're supposed to look at that panel in issue 4 where Atrahasis and Niaga are standing on the balcony, and they're standing like this, and the balcony is like this behind them. And that's what an editor is for. I'm paying $4 an issue, $20 for the whole series, plus a bag and board, plus tax and everything, and I expect a higher quality art in a Marvel comic that I'm paying for. I expect a higher quality of work. And not only was the art, in my opinion, subpar, but it was also very cartoony. It didn't have a lot of gravitas. It had basic cell shading. I can take or leave cell shading. I didn't have too much trouble with the coloring in the comic. It was just the overall art style, which was very young adult, and the artist would probably be very good at drawing a young adult comic. Just after she practices backgrounds a bit. So, story-wise, I think I've moved on from, the YA and everything. So, which leads into the story, which has no overarching plot. I talked about in my issue 5 review how we suddenly get Set as the final boss, which doesn't... It came out of nowhere. There was no mention of Set for the first 3.5 issues, basically. Okay, 3 issues or so. And there were no snakes, there was no snaky serpentine symbolism anywhere. You just have suddenly Set. And it's interesting. One thing that really motivated me to want to do a wrap-up video, one sec. Doing these videos makes me really thirsty. So, I have my apple juice to both keep me warm and to keep me hydrated. But one thing that really motivated me to want to do this wrap-up video was because after I did issue 5, I realized Belit is, in an odd way, one of the most religious characters in the Conan mythos. Because there's a scene where she and Conan talk about their beliefs, basically. She asks about the gods of the north, and he tells her about Crom, of course. And she declares that she believes in the gods of Shem, because they're the best, because she's Shemite, so obviously her gods are the best. And that's another thing, is Belit is a brat, and that's something I complained about throughout the comics, was they kept making her an insufferable brat. And Belit in Queen of the Black Coast is a brat. She demands her way. She tries to bend reality to suit her whims. And she's a murderer and a pirate and all that. But she's not insufferable. She's charming in her weird way. I don't know if I would actually want to spend too much time around her. Although I think I'm actually like her in that way, in a sense. So she is a brat, but she's not an insufferable one. She's a charming one, which we didn't get to see in the comic, which is something I would have liked to see, because it's a fascinating character, and it's multifaceted. You like her, but she can be hard to get along with at the same time. And I would have liked to have seen that character development instead of what we actually got, which wasn't really any development, not really. So, okay. So, but like I was saying, but anyway, like I was saying, so, and she talks about the gods of Shem, and there's one god of thieves that Conan likes that she talks about, and, or that he tells her about, and she's like, okay, well, he's from, even that god you say you like, he's also Shemite. And this is what I mean by she tries to bend reality to her will. She's trying to rewrite the whole mythos of the gods to say, okay, I love Conan. Conan likes this god. I like these gods, so I'm gonna find a way to make his god one of my gods. It's really kind of cute and endearing in its own weird way, and I enjoy that. So, but yeah, there's no overarching plot, and sorry. So, Belit is, in her way, religious, which is why it does make sense. Or I don't so much have a problem with Set being the final boss and the big bad. I just wish it had come up first, and I would have liked to have seen more about the gods, in a way. I actually had an idea after I did my review of issue 5 that if you want to bring the gods into it, you could actually have had the plot be that Belit is called, because they have this whole thing that Belit is called to the sea, and her mother went insane and basically drowned herself in a trance, sleepwalking into the ocean. And, you know, there's issue 4, they try to bring up this whole thing of, is Belit's madness her mother's, or is it her father's, or is it something else? And you could have had this whole thing that maybe she's claimed by the god or goddess of the sea. Knowing modern day Marvel, they'd want to go with a goddess of the sea. I can work with that. You know, have a goddess of the sea who has kind of claimed Belit as hers, and it's like, okay, you have to be my champion. And kind of like Moana, but more and more violent, and, you know, have the threat of insanity. Have it, you know, she's marked by a god, and mortals can't carry that without, you know, losing some of their sanity and some of their self. And I just feel that would have been better than this, because there's a scene in issue 2, I believe, where Belit is embracing the whole pirate queen thing and putting on all her regalia and saying, the ship is mine, these sea monsters are my destiny, the ship was my cradle. I'm not pulling out the issue to read it exactly. But so there's this supposed to be kind of, I feel like they were going for a whole fate thing, but it just kind of fell through. And pretty much all the themes in the story fall through. They all kind of show up and don't go anywhere. Like the whole thing about, we don't find out about Belit's mother and her madness until issue 4. Which is way too late in the game to be introducing something like that. And Belit is, she is mad in a way, you know, in the insane way in Queen of the Black Coast, and I wouldn't mind playing with that. I would enjoy seeing it done well. I just don't think this series did it well, and I would have really liked to have seen it. And there's so much you could do with the character if you were actually writing the character. Because, again, Tini Howard wasn't. She was writing a pirate character that she rolled in a D&D campaign. And as soon as she said that, Marvel should have been like, oh, heck no. Actually, you know who really should have? Conan Publishing International. I talked about how after issue 4, I was so mad about that issue, because that was the issue where we got the "I'm not kidding" line, which anachronistic dialogue just absolutely drives me nuts. We've also had it in Valyria, and there's a trailer for a new movie about Emily Dickinson, starring Haley Steinfeld, I believe it is, and Haley Steinfeld is speaking modern language. She even says, at one point, she's like, dude, no. And I'm just like, ah! 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 Don't do that! Don't! Oh my gosh, I hate anachronistic language in period pieces. I absolutely hate it. I hate, one of my mom's favorite movies is Secretariat, which is, it's about a racing horse in the 60s, and the movie is very well done. It is from Disney. It's very well done. Everything pretty much looks very 60s. The actress the starring actress, you know, she looks 60s. She's got the hair, she's got the tailored suits. It looks great, except for this one teenage daughter who I look at her and I'm like, you are not 60s, you are not 70s. Like, she's a war protester, borderline hippie. And I'm just going, you do not look 60s, you do not look 70s. Yes, you've got the straight hair. And I mean, I have pictures of my mom with her hair straight like that, because she grew up in the 70s. But she just looks so modern. And everything about her attitude and the way she moves is so modern. And it absolutely kills me whenever I see her in that movie, because it totally takes me out of the suspension of disbelief, which, as anyone who knows anything about writing knows, the suspension of disbelief is very important to any story, especially something like Hyboria, which is a whole fictional age set in the dark ages of our own history, before recorded history. You know, we had Atlantis, and then the cataclysm that sank it, and humanity had to come back from the age of barbarism. And so it's this whole fictional world that's set within our world, which is a really fascinating concept. And in a way, I feel like Robert E. Howard did what J.R.R. Tolkien was trying to do, in a way, but not from a Christian mythos standpoint. I don't know how better to explain it, except that Robert E. Howard did in about 10 years what J.R.R. Tolkien spent 40 years trying to do, in a way. But so suspension of disbelief is very important. And I mean, when Schwarzenegger was first in talks to play Conan, one thing they did was they handed him the Roy Thomas Marvel comic books, because they wanted him to become familiar with that way of speaking. One thing that's kind of held me back a bit in my own writing, because I am trying to write a sword and sorcery story. One thing that's always kind of my self-confidence issues, and that makes me insecure about my writing, is, can I write in a way that the language feels accurate, in a way that if I were reading it, it wouldn't bother me. And it's something I'm getting more comfortable with as I've started writing again, so updates on that soon, I hope. But we'll see how that goes. The one theme that so like I said, we don't find... Okay, now I remember where I was. So, issue 4, we find out about Belit's madness, and I was so mad after that issue that I actually sent an email to Conan Publishing Unlimited, just going, you're gonna allow this? You're gonna allow Marvel to make a complete travesty of these characters that you own? And they never responded to me. I still haven't heard back from them. And instead, a couple weeks ago, it came out they're expanding their relationship with Marvel. Marvel is doing Solomon Kane, which I have a hard time imagining because, as I said in my Valyria video, my Valyria 2 video, when I talked about this, Solomon Kane is a Puritan. And I'm honestly kind of curious in a morbid, terrified way how Marvel is going to handle the whole Puritan thing. And then we also have Dark Agnes, because Marvel can't get Red Sonja. So we also have Dark Agnes, who, I mean, is there going to be friction with, like, Solomon Kane telling her, oh yes, no, you're a woman, you can't fight with us, and she's going to prove him wrong and smash the patriarchy or something? Is that what we're going to get out of this? Okay, it looks like I'm actually going to be reading Moon Knight, Serpent's Rise, or whatever, because I gotta see this. I've got to see what they do with it. Okay, so yeah. Conan Publishing International never got back to me. Instead, they've expanded their relationship with Marvel, and I don't think they're reading the Age of Conan lines. I don't think they care. I think they're just reading Savage Sword of Conan and Conan the Barbarian, if they're reading any of it at all. Which is really sad. Anyway, so I talked about in my issue 5, you know, the one theme that does actually hold through. And it doesn't actually hold through. It goes for like issue 1, maybe into issue 2, and then issue 4, issue 5. Maybe a little in the end of issue 3. It kind of vanishes in the middle, in my opinion. Is the whole valuing the lives of the people you lead, which is just such an odd theme for this story, and I don't understand what Tini Howard was trying to accomplish with it, because I really felt like it was there, but it didn't actually do anything, and I was still left with a lot of questions, because you have this whole, like I said in my reviews, they're pirates, and they live in a barbaric world of Hyboria. People are going to die. It's a fact of life. People are going to die, and in a world like that, they're going to die violently. If you're a pirate, you're going to be leading men to their deaths in some cases. It's the same as any general or any mercenary leader or whatever. You can't... It's just such a random thing, and it really doesn't fit at all. And again, it's in direct violation to Belit herself. Because the first time we see Belit, when she first meets Conan, he is slaughtering her crew. And she's like, hang on, this guy's impressive. Everyone stop, step back. I'm gonna come hit on him. And as she walks up to him, her thigh brushes against his bloody sword, and she doesn't care. He was just slaughtering her men, and she's like, she doesn't even comment on it. She doesn't care. She doesn't react to that. She's got her mind on other things. Namely, Conan, and things she wants him to do to her with a different kind of sword. Basically, that's all Belit is thinking about in that moment, is Conan. She does not care that the bodies of her men are lying brutalized and hacked to pieces by the man that she is now seducing. So, I mean, if there is a story in here anywhere that kind of ties into that theme, I want to know how she got from, I can't be like my father, I have to value the lives of my men too. Oh, blood on my thigh, I don't care, please come sleep with me. How do you get from that to that? That's where the real story is between the miniseries and Queen of the Black Coast. Because these characters do not add up. At all. And I think maybe it was supposed to tie back to the fact that she kills Saturninus and Prisca. And again, that whole relationship was just so weird because they were my friends. No, they weren't. Just because you sailed with them and you spent 4 years fighting and snipping at each other and wrestling for control, that doesn't make someone your friend. But I grow redundant. Okay. So, how to fix it. I've already kind of talked about how I would actually bring the gods into it more, and I would just go full tilt. Sea goddess that likes Belit and claims her. Maybe her mother was a priestess or something. I would also take out the whole subplot of Atrahasis, or not even a subplot, just the whole idea of Belit's father being a pirate, because it doesn't fit with Belit saying that her fathers were the kings of Asgulon. Cut that. No, you do not get to say, and it doesn't even make sense, because the kings of Asgulon were pirates who settled there. Okay, does that mean her great-great-grandfather was a pirate? Because that's what that sounds like, is like, or it can't just be that her father settled there and became king of Asgulon, which doesn't make sense. She didn't even try. Cut it. Just make her an actual princess who maybe Asgulon is taken over when she's a child, and she decides, she escapes on a ship and says, you know what? I want to be a pirate. Stop lecturing me, Niaga. I'm the princess, and I say we're gonna be pirates. Now, go flog those people. That, to me, makes more sense with Belit's personality. Yeah, I think that is a much better idea than what we got. I would not cover 5 years in 5 books. I would condense it to just a year or 2, maybe. Either cut the sea monsters or completely change their role in the story. Her obsession with hunting them only lasts 2 issues, and it doesn't serve any purpose. It's a contrivance. It makes something happen, and I just don't think it worked as a plot. Yeah, those are my main points of what I would fix. I would change the background. I would bring the gods into it more, or at least sooner. Because as it is, having Set just show up in the last issue, because Set himself doesn't show up until, like, the last issue when Belit is... Okay, end of issue 4 when Belit is cursed. It's just very... It doesn't make sense. So the story needs to be consolidated and streamlined, and you need actual consistent themes. And, okay, maybe all of this is pointless. Maybe it doesn't really matter that I'm sitting here and these comics really bothered me, and they They disappointed me even more than I thought they would. I went in expecting them to be bad, and they were even worse than I anticipated. But it's something I do care about, and that's why I'm here doing my... I'm going on 6 hours of content based on these 5 issues. And I just would have liked to see better. And I would like to see storytelling itself get a little more respect. And I wish Marvel overall would shape up. Okay. I think that's everything. Yeah, I think that's everything now. Alright. Well, if you stuck around, thank you for listening. I think Valeria number 3 comes out either next week or the week after? Might be the week after. I think. I'm having a hard time carrying enough to keep track of when it comes out. So, I don't know what my next video will be. I don't know. I'll figure something out. I might just do another concert stream next Thursday. But we'll see. If you stuck around and you heard everything out, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. I would love to hear what you think. Please leave a comment, and while you're down there, like the video and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. In the description, you will also find links to my social media where you can see my art, and mostly just art at this point. And if you'd like to support me, there is a Ko-Fi link where you can buy me a coffee, so to speak. And money from Ko-Fi goes to either updating my art and YouTube equipment or buying comics so that I can continue doing this. Anyway, thank you again. I hope I see you next time, and I hope you have a great day.